Do you want to play a JRPG with a long epic story, dramatic character arcs, awesome cinematics?
The world now faces total destruction.
The attacks are simultaneous?
Reported casualties at 2 billion and climbing.
Yeah, Lost Dimension is not for you. It does have a few other strengths though. The basic premise of Lost Dimension is that a guy calling himself The End is trying to end the world. He's threatening it with nuclear annihilation, and a group of young adults is sent out to climb his tower and kill him.
Did I mention there's a traitor among you?
The End creates doubt and distrust in the group, though, by saying that there are traitors among them that are actually working for him. In order to get access to the next floor, they need to eliminate at least one of their own, and that once per floor. Something that's gonna put a lot of people off is the fact that the whole game takes place inside this tower. And aside from the reveal at the beginning, and then some reveals at the end, not a lot of development happens in this plot. Most of the dialogue you get is really just characters wondering, who are the traitors? What are they even doing? And what is this tower? And what's the End's actual goal? And that essentially just once per floor. So while there's not a whole lot to the actual plot of the game, it does just enough to keep you interested and keep you going throughout the game. On top of that, the game does have interactions with all the characters, and you get to know them more and more as you go through the game, and I found them not amazing, but just likable or relatable enough to really not hate them, and kinda wanted to know more about them. But the real interesting thing is the fact that the whole traitor business is not actually handled that much in the story of the game, but actually in the gameplay. At its core, the basic loop you're going to be going through is lobby, where you get to talk to characters, set up their equipment, and learn new skills for them, and then missions.
I'll tear him apart!
Missions are small little combat encounters. They're never very huge, they usually don't last more than 15 minutes at most, and you will not have more than 6 characters in your party, and maybe up to, let's say 15 enemies you might face. Mechanically, the combat is essentially SRPG-like, though it does follow in the footsteps of Arc the Lad, or more recently, Valkyria Chronicles. So instead of using menus and cursors to give orders to characters, you just control them directly. It is still turn-based, it's divided in an enemy phase and a friendly phase, and you can move all your characters in whichever order you want, and you can even transfer turns between characters. One core element of the combat are assist attacks. Essentially, any character who is in range of an enemy will attack that enemy when that enemy gets attacked by another character. So we have character A and B and an enemy. They're both in range of the enemy. Character A attacks, and then character B will do an assist attack. Then character B gets to take their turn, you attack the enemy again, and character A will also do an assist attack again. This applies to enemies as well, so if there's 3 enemies in range of one of your characters, you will have to take up to 9 attacks. This means the game is very much centered around ganging up on enemies, and can take quick turns and get pretty damn brutal. There's also a counterattack mechanic and a sanity mechanic that can make counters go berserk. Combat feels very lethal and relatively fast-paced as a result.
This might be kinda tricky.
So once you clear a mission and you come back to the lobby, one thing will happen. The main protagonist has the ability of listening to people's inner voices and essentially read their minds. On every floor there are 3 people which have distorted inner voices, making them potential traitors. After each battle, you will hear the inner voices of all the characters that were in your party, so you can have up to 3 distorted voices after every battle. You have a nice little menu which tracks all the party compositions on the floor and how many voices you heard. From this, you essentially play mastermind with your party composition and figure out who the 3 potential traitors are. Then you can spend vision points, which you sometimes gain through missions, to actually read their minds and figure out if they are the traitor or not. there are 10 other characters besides the main protagonist, and you can only take 5 of them into battle. This means it's gonna be quite an effort to figure out who the 3 potential traitors are, and it's gonna be a prime consideration in your party composition. However, even after you figured out who the traitor is, the fun doesn't stop. You can only control your own votes in the election. You do not get to choose who the other people vote for. They will vote for whoever they trust least. Trust is mostly gained in battle by characters supporting each other with assist attacks or healing items. On top of that, you do have a battle ranking. Every character gets ranked depending on how useful they are in combat, and someone who's on the bottom of that will also be a lot more suspicious to the other characters. So even once you figured out who the traitor is, you still have to pay a lot of attention to which characters you take into battle, in which configuration, and how you have them interact with each other, so that you can actually manipulate their trust so they vote for the actual traitor. That is, if you actually want them to vote for the traitor. Because you don't have to eliminate the traitor. You can eliminate anyone. In fact, it is theoretically possible, if I'm not mistaken, to eliminate everyone, except the main protagonist, that is. Though I haven't actually tried that. For example, something that happened to me in my playthrough on the PC version is that very early on, it turned out that the healer character was the traitor. And I was contemplating very hard if I actually want to kill him, because he's my healer. He's the only one. And not only that, because he was the healer, and I used him to heal my other characters, everyone trusted him. An important element of the elimination process of a character is that they actually get to drop their materia, which are essentially branches of their skill tree. And you can equip these to other characters, and they get access to all the skills you have unlocked for that character. Knowing that my healer was the traitor meant that I could still eliminate him at a later time on another floor. Maybe when I had leveled him up a little more, so I had all the good healing skills and then could transfer these to another character. At the end I decided, no, I'm gonna kill him right now and I'm gonna spend the rest of the game using healing items that I have to buy, and I went through a whole process of manipulating the trust to get everyone to vote for him. Overall, the whole system does result in a lot of very interesting choices that you have to make in the game. At least in the beginning.
Maybe this power's good for more.
Even though it is theoretically possible for characters to gain negative trust by getting hurt by other characters, I found that to not really happen in the game, and the whole trust system was essentially just a steady climb. What's more, you get to talk with 2 characters after each mission and just get free trust with them that way. And once a character trusts you enough, they will actually come to you after a mission and ask you who you think the traitor is. And when they trust you enough, then they'll just vote for whoever you tell them to. So after the first few floors, the whole system kind of falls apart and becomes not all that important anymore, at least the trust system. You still have to figure out who the traitor is by doing all the mastermind party composition stuff, but there's some wasted potential here. A similar thing applies to the enemy design and the mission design. There's essentially only 2 objectives throughout the entire game, and that's kill all enemies and kill only these 2 specific enemies. Every mission still feels unique because they do a decent job of playing with starting positions and level geometry. You will also get stuff like switches and traps, doors later on in the game. Height kind of plays a role, there's going to be ladders, and you have 2 characters which get to ignore a lot of these because one can float and the other can teleport, which is interesting. It also means that these characters can move through or over other characters, which is important because characters will block other characters. There's just enough nuance to all of this to keep you going, and it will improve and add as the game goes on, but it doesn't feel like it quite lives up to all the potential that is there. The skill trees in this game are really damn good. There's a lot of very unique abilities for every character, and there have to be because the traitors, oh, I think I haven't mentioned that before, are randomly generated every playthrough. This means that you have to be able to complete the game with every possible party composition. Or not, I mean, you can always decide to just not vote for the traitors, I guess. Not gonna tell you what happens if you do that, though. It always felt like I had some good stuff to invest in. I always felt motivated to go into combat because, one, I would figure out who the traitor might be, or I could influence people to vote for the traitor, and because I would get skill points to invest in the skill tree, and there was always at least one skill for every character at any time that I really wanted to get. However, at the end I didn't actually use all of them as much as I maybe would have wanted to. The game overall just doesn't quite feel challenging enough. It doesn't feel like it's forcing you enough to interact with all the systems it has, especially later on in the game. And that's a shame, because there's quite a bit here that could have made for some very good, and does make for some very interesting choices and some very interesting gameplay. Again, I'm not saying I got bored of the game towards the end, but I felt more and more that there was a lot of wasted potential here. It could have been so much more.
That would seem a logical conclusion.
I do hope that we might see a spiritual successor to this game at some point, though I am a little doubtful. The game hasn't really been selling that well. I'm honestly impressed we got a PC port in the first place. I originally played this game on my Vita, way back, and it was a decent version of the game, though the load times were a little annoying and its performance wasn't great. There's also a PS3 version of it, which is probably the best one to play, and the PC version is, it's okay. I mean, it works most of the time. I had 3 crashes in the 20 hours that it took me to beat this game, which isn't a huge amount of time. However, that was not the true ending. I got the true ending on the Vita, and that took me in total about 30 hours, which is not an amazing length for a JRPG, but it's not a bad length either, and the game isn't too expensive, at least at this time. So I would certainly recommend this game to anyone who's interested in a mechanically unique JRPG, and who can live with a game that doesn't have too much production value and doesn't have an epic story or any cute waifus in it.
You really are a wanker.